Pat motherfucking Owens.
Owen.
Owen.
We got it this time.
Yeah.
We know it's Owen.
I tell everyone it's Pat Owens, but it's not Owens.
I always argued you on it, but I was never sure. You threw the doubt in it. But yeah, so I mean, we had a long one. It was like a 3-hour convo. We talked a lot about just like life and like it was all mixed into nutrition and health and all this thing. But it was so spiritual, so awesome at the beginning.
Yeah,
it was fucking cool. And there's so much I wanted to get in that I didn't because it was so like activating.
It blew my mind because when we actually started talking about nutrition was the end of the podcast and we extended it, but I'm like, holy fuck, this guy's like just a wealth of knowledge. It's just a fountain of information coming out. Any question you have, you just go on a tangent with like science behind it, and it was really interesting. And it just reminded me like what a great resource he is to have to share with you guys and for us, like just to have that kind of information to access it. It's incredible.
Yeah, he's like a gem. Like he's a real fucking jewel. Like he's I would say because of his attitude and his like academic history, is like his credentials, if you will. He's just like I don't know. For lack of a better term, he's like a health guru. He's like
Well, throw out some of his titles because we didn't say that in the intro.
Well,
he's a PhD.
I think we did talk. I think we did mention it.
Well, but in this.
Yeah. Well, okay. So he's a doctor. He has a PhD in nutrition. He's a teacher at McGill, and he offers one-on-one help as well for health and wellness and through nutrition, but also other avenues. He's also helped me individually a lot, and a lot of people we know.
Yeah.
And he just has he doesn't use the word often, but he's very holistic. He's really going to look at everything. I'm sure he wouldn't disagree with that title. Like he has a really grounded in history, grounded in evolution approach, and he just wants to take care of the human organism, and he understands that everything's connected. So, you're going to help someone who's depressed by attacking sleep and food and psychology and, meditating. And now you'll see in the podcast, he's deep into Buddhism and shit, right? Yeah. So he gets a lot from different places. He
pulls it all together. That's where the holistic approach comes in. And that word is a buzzword these days, but in the purest form, that's what he does. He'll see your nutritional habits influenced by your psychological state, your environmental state, your genetics, and your lifestyle habits, and that's all into account. And it's not necessarily about doing X diet or doing X amount of cold showers per week or whatever, or fasting. Then he was tying it into Buddhism and how the 4 pillars. It's just there's a lot more going on than just do it, bro. Like that kind of advice you just throw out.
That was like a thick, like right in the middle of the podcast, we got into
it's
the
not
culture of it. Yeah,
it's not always as simple as just doing something. There's a lot of factors that need to be addressed in order for many of us to take on these kind of lifestyle changes. And it was deep. We got into a little bit of the emotional side of these patterns and habits that we've developed. We're all developed, but especially during COVID, I'm sure a lot of us can relate to that bad habits we kind of formed.
Yeah, every time you were talking about like Uber Eats and things, all the same for me too. Yeah. Exactly. I didn't say it on the podcast, but yeah.
Yeah, and so this was a good one. 3 hours, man. Grab some popcorn. No, grab some spinach.
Almost 3 fucking hours, man. That's awesome. Grab some spinach. I didn't catch that. Yeah, Pat, we love you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You always give us a lot to think about and reinforce some stuff that we know intuitively as well. So it's really awesome to have like a smart guy who's a nice guy he's a bright soul. It's cool. So you guys will enjoy it. You'll love it. Yeah, I guess that's it. And like and subscribe.
Hit
please.
That subscribe button.
We're trying to get used to this. To remind you guys, it helps out a lot. If you got iTunes, put the 5 stars. Share it with friends. We have a bunch of other podcasts, all these experts and interesting people. Sometimes it's just me and Nate shooting the shit, and we just try to break the universe. We got to do one of those soon. I was just thinking that, actually.
I was feeling that. Okay, we'll set one up soon. And one more thing, just throw us a comment. I really want to start engaging with what we both do. We want to start engaging with you all and just hearing you out. Maybe if you have ideas, opinions.
It's actually fun to see, like, people give us also resources. They also give us suggestions of guests. They give us thoughts on the podcast and some things we might have gotten wrong and some things that like we could have tacked onto it. So it's just more benefit for us and more benefit for people who are listening. So and I honestly I love responding. It's like a
Awesome.
maybe it'll be a problem in the
Well, when it starts to overload, it might be harder. But enjoy. This is the core right now. So we're talking to the core listeners. That's the community we're trying to build.
That's true. It's fun while it's fun.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
Fuck it. Stay curious. Stole it, motherfucker.
Take it, bro. It's yours.
What's up, beautiful people? I'm Nathaniel Pearl.
And I'm Sammy Sheva.
And welcome to Curious Chimps Podcast, a show where we explore the infinite complexities of the human experience.
We do not endorse anything illegal, so please consult doctors, do your research, and for the love of all that is holy, be safe. All right, let's talk about drugs.
Curious Chimps.
Oh, you have too many strawberries? Okay, go poo-poo. Nope. Because if she goes poo-poo, you know, she's going to miss a little bit of her, I don't know what she's watching. But.
Something.
We're starting that podcast from that line. Go poo-poo. That's where it starts. I'm sorry, Pat.
So that's the way life is.
We as usual, you know, no strong format there. I mean, you can reintroduce, but like we'll just direct people. I think I just checked it. Episode 37. You've been on before, and you're a lovely human being by all standards, but you're also a doctor, a Ph.D. in nutrition, and you're a teacher at McGill, and anything else I'm missing, obviously, like do the honors.
I don't know. You got it pretty good. Started at 9 to 5 during COVID. I work at a small pharmaceutical company, like a really small one right here close to my house. So just, you know,
Nice.
to get something a little bit more experience under my belt.
Cool.
Yeah.
I saw also you on Instagram where I don't know if you partnered up or you did something affiliated with this like ice challenge, this cold bathing, or you did like a whole video documentary-ish explaining the cold therapy. It was really cool to see. I don't know if that's like a long-term partnership or just it was like a little video type thing, but it was really interesting.
Yeah, they found me, Ice Wim. They're based in Belgium and in Germany. I was just writing to them right before this podcast because they've been asking a whole bunch of people to give their testimonial about how long they've been doing ice baths, how much has changed them. And so I went on, like said, hey, I'm Patrick Owen. I'm a lecturer at McGill University. And they really liked the way that I delivered the message. And the next day they said, like, wow, do you mind doing an introductory video based on Sebastian Niep? Now, Sebastian Niep is an old German guy, used to have tuberculosis, became a monk, but he's basically considered the grandfather of naturopathy. He was the one who had like the 5 pillars of health, which was cold therapy, basically changed his life. Medicinal plants, a plant-based diet as well, and all these like these back to nature kind of thing. Back in the late 1700s, when things like that weren't really
Commonplace.
popular. So in the whole fashion that things are coming back into style, or ancient knowledge, is coming back into style. This is very relevant to this whole cold therapy aspect to it. We do know that he's written a couple of books, and he has had a lot of not clients, disciples. I don't know, followers.
Yeah,
whatever.
patients.
Patients. Thank you. That's what they're called.
Is that the word? I was kind of tongue in cheek. Yeah. I'm not sure. Like, okay.
No, that's it. Yeah, and like he just started a movement way back in the 1700s, 1800s. I'm not sure the years. But yeah, so I haven't done that yet. But they're adding me on LinkedIn and stuff, and they're just growing. And I think it's a great idea to start a social media account on asking others to contribute your content. That's a genius idea.
That's like not a big twist. It's just like here's a platform, but like you're still funneling a kind of information. You still want like a niche sort of. Yeah, that's kind of obvious.
But if you guys do cold showers or cold baths, I recommend them to you, and you just give a 2-minute blurb, and then they'll post it. And then the other ice bath Wim Hof community is going to add you. And then, you just get stronger and stronger that way.
I actually did a cold shower this morning because I was like, okay, we got Pat on. I got it's just it's just
you got to tell him.
Yeah, exactly.
But your description of how it works, like physiologically, was so, I never heard it explained the way you first said it on our podcast about how it could relate to like stopping the cortisol production, and that's kind of going to influence the going to sleep at night, the melatonin production, and it's kind of like a stress, like a stress off button. It's like
a rubber band. Like you explained it, like you stress yourself out and get your body better at stress, which gets it better at relaxing in like a way. And
but
I forgot about that.
I never put the two together, that it teaches you how to deal with stress factors and how to approach them, because now you're like in the cold shower, you get used to it, you have to calm yourself down, and that just applies to life, right?
Yeah, actually there's since more and more research is coming out, we know more about what actually it does. And I use it for stress inoculation. And, people will say there's a whole bunch of health benefits to it. Mm-hmm. But in fact, there's two main ones. And how you go about it depends on what your goal is. Why are you taking cold showers? I'm clear on why I'm doing it. And that's for stress inoculation. By introducing an acute, immediate stress and being able to escape that stress, I resensitize that feedback cycle.
Daddy.
Mm-hmm. I like how you put it. Inoculation is a interesting word. Like you're introducing yourself to a controlled level of stress at a physiological level, at a cellular level, at a psychological level as well. A lot of people talk about that. Like you don't want to do it and just kind of rip the Band-Aid. Like the more you hesitate, the worse it gets. Like all that fun stuff as well. So you're literally just more prepared and more able to handle stress in day-to-day life. In a general sense, in that scientific physiological word, like stress, it doesn't have to be that negative thing. It's just like it's like pressure, or I don't know.
Well, that's what our bodies were actually meant to do.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, we are living a cushy life these days, right? We are not under. So I'm actually putting a course together, and this absolutely forms part of it. But from an evolutionary point of view, most of the stresses back in our Paleolithic era were almost all physical stresses. Mm-hmm. But the other part of the cold showers that a lot of people use it for is for fat loss, because being exposed to cold actually increases a type of fat that we have as adults. Not as much. Kids have it more, but it's called brown adipose tissues. And you can induce it to produce more and more and more, but it's so individual. And you basically have to be constantly exposed to the cold in order to have that kind of stimulus, to be like, oh my gosh, we're always cold. We might as well bring up that brown fat, because brown fat, it uncouples energy. So you could take in all those calories, and all those calories are going to be used to produce heat. They're never going to be stored. Mm-hmm. So the more brown adipose tissue that you have, you're just more of a furnace, and you can actually take in a lot more calories. So that's how the fat loss occurs. But we don't know how often, the type of exposure. Everyone's different, right? So we don't know really how it is. But if you are going to take an ice bath or a cold shower, instead of going for stress inoculation, because if you're going for stress inoculation, what I do, you absolutely must keep calm as that shower goes in. Mm-hmm. Keep that breath in. Try to fight that stress response. Try to fight that like, oh shit, But if your main goal is to burn fat, you want to actually not say, oh shit, but you actually want to have that shiver response. Ooh. While you're stress inoculation, you're trying to avoid that shiver response. Try to calm that mind. Try to dissociate like this. Like, I know this is your body's, I know we're stressed. I know this is unpleasant. Mm-hmm. Just feel what's happening, accept it, until you can't. Whereas for fat burning, you actually want that shivering response, because that is the signal that goes to your brain saying, no, the reason why we're shivering is to produce heat. And so constant exposure. So I'm not sure what the literature says about cold showers and fat loss, but the association seems to be weak. There's so many unknowns. Okay. However, there is much more solid research for stress inoculation. So that's why I recommend it.
That's cool.
That's fascinating. So it's like two different responses could theoretically hit two different systems. One can target the nervous system and calm it down, and the other one, it can amp it up and produce more heat and essentially fat loss. So that's, wow. Okay. That's really interesting.
Oh, there's more benefits. I mean, cold shower to the scalp and the hair will increase blood flow, right? Increased blood flow to the scalp means shinier, healthier hair and skin. But how much do we need? That's the problem.
What's the role in the cold shower therapy in terms of immune systems? Is that actually amplify the immune response at all?
Yeah, absolutely. The immune system is so reactive to stresses. That's what the immune system is, right? And I think it's fascinating because there's a theory about the increased amount of child allergies, especially against peanuts. And it's basically because we are just living in a sterilized, sanitized world. And our immune system, much like our muscles, need to exercise. And so by introducing cold showers, this is a physiological stress. So you will increase white blood cells. We've known this for decades. The army does this all the freaking time. Cold training, and then just throwing their soldiers out into the ocean or naked in the snow, things like that. And that's how we noticed, how do you get sick? It's not the cold. It's a combination of cold, wind, and wet. That's too much stress. So it's like the cold, the wind,
oh, you just blew my mind. Okay,
tell me what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah, because when you're wet, your skin has this like kind of energy osmosis response where it warms up the area to dry you. So you're burning, that's a stressor. But then the wind destroys your heat plume, so you're colder. And then on top of that, if you're cold, like if the actual base temperature or ambient temperature is cold, then you're like, let's say like feeling way colder, and your body is like having these multiple levels of cold stress.
So you got these three little levels, right? Each by its own, uncomfortable, but all together, it's too much stress on the body. Our moms always says, put on a jacket or you're going to catch cold. The feeling is that the cold doesn't carry any viruses, because that's what colds are, is that it's going to tax your immune system and make it weaker so that you'll be more susceptible to catching whatever virus there's out in the world. But what if we're actually training to be cold? All right, so we got cold. So cold, we're not affected. Now we're going to be cold and wet. All right, we just keep training. Now that doesn't affect us anymore. Cold, wet, and wind. That's the secret. That's the formula, because as you're cold and wet, you're trying to produce heat in order to keep yourself warm. But that wind just keeps blowing that heat away. And that's so much work for your body.
I hate the wind. I can cold shower. I can swim. I can ice bath. I get used to that. But the wind is like, it's relentless. You have these moments almost like this weird like frame rate where it feels warm sometimes, then it comes back, and like you never can get used to it. It's so destructive to your feeling of warmth. I really hate the wind. I complain about it.
Really? That's hilarious. Most people like, so a windy day for you is just fine, but a snowy, cold day is fine.
Yeah, like if there's a breeze, it's like everyone loves that feeling. You know, like you open your arms, like it's like a bath. Like it feels good. But like if it's windy and on top of that it's cold, and like here it's like humid. Like if you have these kind of combos, man, the cold gets in, and I can't get that like that advanced cold relaxation, like that later feeling that you were talking about. You know, which was an interesting point, because it's like you get that shock, and then you get that like that relax. Like trigger that you do if you have cold shock like often, and that's actually what I look for, because that's what encourages me, I think, to like take cold showers, and that maybe that's why I hate the wind, is because it's like it's just kind of like you never get that chance to relax.
Like battering ram.
I guess now if I see it exactly, but it's intermittent. I think that's what bothers me, is that you just have this like, oh, it's over, and then it's like, no, it's back, and then, oh, it's over, and then, no, it's back. But the cold, like you get this like zone. You fall into the zone sort of, and then you can really like relax, and then you can, like you said, stay in the cold long enough to start inducing that real shiver response, or that involuntary shiver response. Not just the shock, but like you feel good.
Yeah.
You feel like, they say people with hypothermia feel warm and they take their clothes off and you're standing there and you feel better and better as time passes, but then you start getting this like your
muscle spasms too, like trembling.
I had a time, I don't know if I mentioned it on the last podcast, but like I remember I was swimming once and I was really getting used to it, and like we were keeping the pool open like well into fall, and it was like 60 degrees. It was like something crazy. And I usually did 20 laps and I would get out because it was like just dangerous at that point. I did 30 that day. I didn't think it was much more. I get out and I like my hands are like curled in, and I'm like I was like, uh-oh, like I just like this is new. And I feel like I had some nerve damage. I had I don't know if it was nerve damage or maybe it's just like blood cell damage or something. Like the tips of my fingers were numb for like months afterwards.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know what I did that. Like, I don't know if it was just in my head a little bit. It was very subtle, but I was like, I'm not doing that again. Like, there's a limit, there's a danger. Like Wim Hof did the he's underneath the ice there, and he was his optic nerve froze. He was down there for so long, like, and he's probably loving it. He was like, this is fun,
But that brings me to a question. Actually, is like, what's the sweet spot for like these cold baths and cold showers? Is there?
I would assume you have to feel it out.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like it's like yoga.
Yeah, you actually, and it does come with time. But I call it a tank. Like how much do you have in your tank? And with more training, you have a bigger tank.
I see.
But that's not just the tank. Like say you went swimming for 20 laps? You said
30 that time.
30 laps. All right. So say you do 30 on a regular basis, but you just happen to go through a really stressful time at work, a breakup,
an extra,
whatever.
Yeah.
So now you understand that your tank is not just your physical exertion, but it's also your emotional state, how much sleep you got.
Yeah.
And with time, you understand when it's time to say no, or I don't think I can handle this. And it goes way beyond just, I don't think I can do this CrossFit workout, for example, because I didn't sleep well for the last 2 days. I have diarrhea or whatever, but it's also emotional. Like, I just can't handle talking to this person. And you understand, like, where's your limit of the tank? I'll feel burned out. I'll feel anxious. I feel stressed out. So it's very individual. And I think this comes with age, experience, and awareness to understand, like, I think I pushed it a little bit too much.
I avoid the cold shower sometimes if I didn't sleep well or something. And I love how you said awareness, because my therapist told me this like a week ago. Was like
a week ago.
Yeah, it's crazy. It was like, look, imagine you have a bucket and you're trying to fill this bucket with like self-care or whatever. And and it's like anything, all the things you just named are taking from the bucket. Yeah. Like it's like a dumb but truer way of look. It's like it's a simplistic. Well, no, it's a simplified. It's a truer view of like your tank, like you said. Like you're just this fucking bucket, man. And you need to like you get in an argument with your parents or your spouse. Your job stresses you out. Like all these things are taking. But then you have like a win at work. Then you go for a good run. Like there's things that just take out, put back, like a bank account. You're just like in and out, positives and negatives. And you learn to feel it. You almost have to like dipstick yourself. You almost have to be like, because if you're physically tired, it's obvious.
Hold on. Should we dipstick ourselves, you think?
Right now? Right now? It's I could have maybe picked a better analogy.
We need to dipstick ourselves.
I don't know.
But that's a good analogy. That's good.
Yeah, like you need to check. You need to check in consciously, like because it's sometimes it's gross and obvious. It's like I'm tired or I'm hungry or I'm mad because of traffic or whatever. Yeah. But sometimes it's like, oh, I didn't sleep well like 3 days this week. I might not be feeling it so obviously right now, but like that plus, I have a deadline plus, like then you're kind of doing this math instead of just feeling yourself out. You're saying, I probably shouldn't take a cold shower today, or I need to put more drops in the bucket or whatever. So I don't know. I just wanted to put that out there. I just wanted to like double tap that point.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I think a lot of people put way too much pressure on themselves. As you said, sometimes you don't feel like taking a cold shower. Do you feel guilt if you don't take that cold shower? Do you feel guilt?
Bingo.
Do you?
Usually, yeah.
Most of
Yeah, really? Like, oh, I didn't do it.
Well, we set these standards for ourselves, so if we don't do it sometimes, at least for me, I'm like very hard on myself with goals and tasks. So if I don't do something, it's like there's a shame that comes with it, and that shame is obviously not effective, but it's like old patterns that have just been formed over the years. But most people operate like that. It's like if we're supposed, like if you're going to go work out and you don't, then you just guilt yourself even more. And then that creates this pattern and spiral. And eventually you might never start training, and yet the guilt is so powerful,
Yeah. And this is actually, I think this is why we are putting way too much pressure on ourselves. I didn't work out today. I feel guilty. I'm going to go twice as hard tomorrow. I cheated. I ate horribly tonight. I'm going to compensate by intermittent fasting tomorrow and really hitting the gym hard. All this is not a healthy long-term pattern. And I'm guilty of it. I'm so guilty of it. Back to awareness, which is basically the same thing as mindfulness and being aware of your patterns, questioning them, labeling your emotions. These are the books. What book am I reading right now? I highly, highly recommend it. Oh my God, I got like 6 books. Oh, here it is.
I hope it's Own the Day by Aubrey Marcus.
I have that on my Kindle, but it's actually right now I'm writing Why Buddhism is True.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
I also got Unwind Anxiety. This guy's from Brown University. So I am looking at emotions, and the thing with Buddhism is it's not about Buddhism per se. It's actually the science of mindfulness. And I got attracted to it because I was listening to a podcast, and it's all about evolutionary psychology. And it blew my mind because I knew of a certain formula, dopamine. You guys, I think we spoke about dopamine last time. Yeah. But the way that he was saying it was taking our relationship with dopamine from an evolutionary perspective. And from an evolutionary perspective, you got me hooked. Like I'm thinking like, yes, what's going on here? I had 2 pieces of the equation, but this guy gave me a third one, the third piece. And as you said, I'll use your expression, it blew my mind. And so I was like, I got to read this book. And so far, so good. So you guys want to hear this?
Yeah.
Please. My dopamine's... All
right, dopamine. So dopamine is part of an evolutionary basis of approach and avoid. Dopamine is obviously a reward mechanism, but it also provides illusion. So let's take an example. I want a cookie. I deserve a reward. That's dopamine in effect. Dopamine is also responsible for my movement. It actually controls movement. So this is why Parkinson, which is a movement-based disorder, is actually caused by too much dopamine. I think so. It's a dopamine level imbalance. So obviously that has, I'm approaching, I want that cookie, but dopamine is fooling me, saying like, I will be happy once I have that cookie. But in effect, it's actually, I love the feeling of anticipation of having that cookie. Because once I bite that cookie, that dopamine is like, yes, we got it. But after the first bite, we don't taste it anymore. We just keep going. And that's the second part of the equation, is that the cookie was great and we keep eating it because dopamine is like, yeah, keep going. But we're not satisfied. Because the following day, we're thinking that cookie was damn good. I would love to have some more, which means that we were not satisfied with that previous one. The hunt is not over. And so that causes a vicious cycle, a loop. I want this. I got it. I finished it. Now I'll wait until I'm hungry again, or I have that emotional desire to want it again. And then I will seek it again. So that dopamine is not about getting that cookie. It's about anticipating. And once I get it, the third part of the equation is I will always be unsatisfied with it. So number 1, I anticipate enjoying the cookie, the pleasure of it. 2, the pleasure is there only for the first bite. But after I keep eating it, right, nothing. So that's number 2. And number 3 is the order. Chase, unsatisfied, continue to seek that satisfaction.
I know satisfaction doesn't sound
satisfaction. Right, my God, Rolling Stones.
Seek
that satisfaction.
Yeah.
So when he says Buddhism is true, the first noble truth of Buddhism is life is suffering. But he's saying that that's actually not what that is. It's actually life is unsatisfactory. Once we get that brand new car that we've been dreaming, after that, it just becomes a vehicle that brings us from point A to point B. And so we want more, we want more, we want more.
That's crazy.
This is
oh man.
Yeah, right. Mind blown.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just going to say this is a neurochemical explanation for it's not the destination, it's the journey. Like there's a logical reason to not live for the goal. Which is weird, but it ties in so well to Buddhism. And you're saying like this is literally like, dopamine is literally creating this craving and aversion like game loop of life, and that's like the basis for all of Buddhism. So it's like it's really, I want to read this book. This is really interesting.
Actually, I wrote to him not too long ago. I asked him if he wants to be a guest speaker on my for my class. Nice. So fingers crossed. I don't know. These guys are tough to get them, but got nothing to lose.
Shoot it out there.
Yeah, send them our way.
No, but I mean, after that, like, what are the Four Noble Truths, right? So life is suffering. The second noble truth is the cause of that suffering is desire. So now we got to be careful, because a lot of people say like, well, what's wrong with wanting things, right? Like, I want to be successful, and that's why I want to be an entrepreneur, and that's why I want to have an amazing relationship, and that's not at all what it says, because that desire goes back to that primordial, I really want that cookie. So once you know that, wait a second, that's an illusion. That's actually my brain. I am going to have that cookie. And then am I going to feel better after that? We just spoke about that. Like maybe for the first bite. And heck, if you think that first cookie is going to be amazing, go for it. Or you're going for that second one because it tastes just as good. No, almost everybody and I'm including myself in this. I'm never going to stop at one cookie if there's more available.
Yeah.
You're chasing the dragon.
Yeah.
So now you've just reawakened. You've awakened that dopamine cycle hard. And that's just food. All addiction is associated with dopamine, from drugs to alcohol, to gambling, to toxic relationships, to social media, Netflix, porn, complaining. All these addictive behaviors always have dopamine associated with it. Because dopamine is not only associated with approach, like I want to do this, but it's also with avoidance. So dopamine is actually absolutely part of the stress response. And this is why stressed people always try to cope with a maladaptive coping mechanism through addiction. So you see how like dopamine is good for our survival, because evolution wants two things out of us: to survive and to reproduce. To survive long enough to reproduce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all those things, like all of our complex emotions is maladaptive to our society right now, because all stresses are emotion based, right? They're not real. They're not, like there's no lion.
Yeah.
There's no drought. There's no, no hunting, no animals around. And so a lot of these stresses right now are poor emotional control.
Yeah.
And like Buddhism it's an illusion.
For real.
Well, like this whole system, the way we operate is kind of built off this dopamine. It's like marketing makes you anticipate wanting to go get that product. And then they're playing on that system that you're talking about. That third part of it is like the journey towards it. And it's like, these things are evolutionary tools that helped us progress and procreate and grow the tribe, but now they're kind of backfiring against us, because they're pulling you towards X car or whatever it is, and you get it, and then you feel satisfied for a week, and then that next drive, that next hunt goes on. So how do you deal with that in this world, and how to kind of understand this mechanism and kind of get a control of it?
Well, I think that we touched on it before, and it also is exactly what the third noble truth of Buddhism is. It's called the Eightfold Path, and it's basically You need to be careful about the way you think, the way you act towards people, the way you live, the way, so all these things, the way you speak, all these. And this is basically the way of what you guys are all about is self-improvement, being aware of who you are, your role, and how you affect others and how others affect you. Taking responsibility for your emotions, taking accountability for everything, right? Stop blaming others. The world is unfair. We know this. Treat people with respect. And there's a lot of people that kind of deserve your disrespect, but they probably deserve your anger. But, it's just like, it's just this heightened level of awareness in your thoughts, your speech, your actions. And that takes practice. That takes a lot of practice. So that's why meditation is so huge in Buddhism, is because we need to take time throughout the day to understand at the beginning of the day, maybe at the end of the day, how did I treat everybody today? Was I the best version of myself today? If not, how can I improve? Tomorrow, what are my tasks for today? What am I going to say at the office when I first greet Brenda, who said this crappy thing to me? Am I going to be ignoring her? No, I think I'll be nice to her. I will say, hey, Brenda. There's no Brenda, by the way. Just
Freaking Brenda. I like what you're saying, though. Like, there's this. I never thought of it that way. I have my own ideas of meditation, and they've been proven to be useful to me so far. But this is tacking on this idea of giving less power to that anticipation mechanism, that wind up that happens, and then like you said, there's addictive properties to things like complaining or getting angry or debating. Like some things that we think might feel negative in our lives still have a pull because we're pushed away from something. And in Buddhism, they talk about craving and aversion are kind of interchangeable. It's you wanting craving and aversion. Just this idea of wanting or something to happen or not wanting something to happen. It's kind of the same thing.
Absolutely.
It's just this idea of like I'm expecting. Actually, it's expectation. It's the same thing. It's that anticipation. I'm expecting life to be a certain way, and I never thought of it that way. Like you kind of try to mitigate that and be mindful, like you said, and just kind of take each moment as they come. And this essentially, I am kind of deconstructing and describing meditation or the benefits of meditation. And what you said about addiction being a coping mechanism, I never made that connection before. I thought you were just looking for another pleasure, but you're interrupting that anticipation mechanism and kind of satisfying, like reaching the cookie in another way, in another avenue, sort of instantly to gain relief. Yeah. So that's why it can even be self-destructive behaviors. It's just the fact that you find some completion and kind of interrupt that mechanism or that cycle or like that loop. I think of it like a game loop. Like you have a thing you do, a thing you do, and a thing you do, and it comes back around. Yeah. So that's pretty fucking cool. Like that's
the autopilot aspect of it you're describing.
Yeah.
Listen, guys, let me project.
Sure. Hit us.
You guys do. I do this and I battle with it. And like there's some weeks where I'm like, yeah, I'm going good. And then all of a sudden I fall back. But here's the scenario. Your day went freaking awesome. You got everything, man. You did everything, either whether you're fasting, you had a healthy breakfast, whatever. You got your workout in, you're feeling good, you slept. But at night, when it's just time to relax and sit down, that's when it's time to drink a little bit more alcohol than you'd like, eat more carbs than you're supposed to, eat more calories than you're supposed to. Does that nighttime sound familiar to you guys? Where like,
why? Why is it nighttime, man?
So that's actually goes in line with this dopamine. Is that end of the day? Well done, Nate. You did a good job, man. How about a reward? Now is the time to relax. And you want to enhance that situation with a cookie, a beer, weed, right?
Whatever.
So now, because now you're programming your mind to make that association. I'm going to relax in front of the TV, and so you're bundling up these pleasures, right? And so this is programming, and I have this when it comes down to sitting down and snacking. And it's not necessarily bad snacks, but it's definitely ends up being mindless snacking. Mm. And so you're trying all these different things like, all right, well, I won't snack, but I still want to watch TV. All right, I won't watch TV. I'll read a book. Oh, but I really feel like snacking. So it's so hard to not only change your programming and disassociate this autopilot, because that's what mindfulness is understanding, hey, wait a second. And meditation, the main goal of meditation is to train your brain to stop and think about it. So even though you're meditating in the morning, you are all these things like mantra, body scans, focusing on your breathing, all that has one thing, is trying to be focused in the moment. And being focused in the moment is something that translates to the rest of the day, so that when you are on that autopilot, which for most of the day, you are very aware of what's going on, man. You're part of your routine. It's part of your plan. You got to do this. And at nighttime, what the heck's going on? So I'm projecting because this is something that I've battled over COVID. Over COVID, it was, I don't know what the heck happened, but I developed something called nighttime eating disorder, which sounds exactly what it is.
Well, I'm happy there's a name for it, because this is something I've been dealing with too, this whole COVID situation. And a few of my friends too, and I'll be honest about it. It's like I can kill the day like you're talking about, and then as soon as that sun goes down and things are more quiet, I just pull out my phone. And now that like this world is so easy to just order, I literally would just order a meal. I'm not even hungry, and I would just snack it watching a show or a movie. But then this starts becoming 1 or 2 nights, and then 3 nights, and then before you know it, I'm doing it for weeks on end, pretty much almost every night. And it's just, I don't know how to describe it, but it's mindless, and it's like it's tricky and insidious, because it goes under like the umbrella of, you did really good today, you trained, you ran, you ate super healthy, you fasted all day, let's have a little reward. And then it's like you justify it that way. But
I have a theory.
Please share.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Because you mentioned it as a, how do I put this? You said it's a learned response, like it's association. It's kind of like we're taught, and it made me think of something Drew Carey said, because he lost a lot of weight in his life. He used to be like one of those like known to be chubby or fat actors. And he said, why do you reward yourself with bad food? Like, why do we think that way? It's just that simple question just makes you feel ridiculous, and it's like, when we have those satisfying moments, they end, and then we kind of have a down. You could have a great day and then kind of end up, alone, like in your apartment at the end of the day, and the contrast is painful. Yeah. So the mindlessness is almost like a dissociation. It's almost like this protective, like, I don't want to feel that down. And instead of going within and seeing, everything is okay and those accomplishments are still there, there's just this kind of feeling of vacancy because of the contrast, and you create a space to be above the duality and all this fun, spiritual nonsense or sense. But so the reaction that's too quick to catch often for us is to go, how do I keep the feeling going, essentially? And like you're saying, like the whole topic so far is the new anticipation. Let's call Uber Eats and watch the car get closer to the house. Let's literally watch a show that ends on cliffhangers, and like let's just put things in front of us so that the race is never over and we don't have to feel that feeling. Even though we accomplish, even though we feel like we like on paper we checked something off and we feel good, there's just that feeling of like, now what? Or like I did it, I put all this work in, I'm still left with me, sort of, and like this is where things got to get more spiritual, and we got to have this real like mindfulness practice, but like there's a physical aspect to it and just kind of a simple practice, and that's valuable, but there's also this cerebral like idea understanding that you need to know why you're doing it and all, and the more that's kind of why we have this podcast. It's just feed that ego part of it and understanding part of it, so that all parts of your brain are like on the same team. So that's my theory.
I just want to add, because that made some pieces click in my brain. It's just like throughout the whole day, let's say you're busy, you're in the moment in the sense that you're doing what you have to do, but you're not really having that awareness because you work or whatever. And then when you come home, you're still in that mindset of just like, what do you have to do? What of this? And sometimes sitting into it is just, that mechanism is not strengthened throughout the day. So you just want to continue on that momentum of the next thing, the next carrot you want to grab. So that's where the Uber comes in and the cliffhanger shows come in, because now you're waiting for that next thing. And that,
I love it. Yeah, you got it. You got it.
And now I'm realizing that's the crucial point. It's like the cold shower for that pattern. You have to sit in that moment and just observe. And just a few minutes of that would literally break that pattern. And you would realize, oh shit, I'm not even hungry. I don't want to order. And let's just meditate for 10 minutes or whatever. And that's how it has to happen. So thank you guys.
Dude, yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. We're hitting on all the amazing good points, right? So Sammy, you're talking about your emotion was loneliness or isolation. Nate, you're talking about relaxation and pleasure. My main emotion is anxiety. So we all have emotions, and we always either to enhance the pleasure or to coping with it. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing. It's a maladaptive coping mechanism for poor emotional management. I think it's worth repeating that. It's a maladaptive coping mechanism for poor emotional management. So what do we got to do? Do we manage our emotions? We don't repress our emotions, right? You have to be aware of it. All right, well, why do I feel like I deserve this? Why do I feel this? Cold showers, there's no doubt about it. You don't think anything else but, shit, it's cold. it's the ultimate being present mindfulness, right? And a lot of exercises are like that as well. Especially not working out the gym, because my mind just goes on, but say like you're doing a team sport, you got to be in the game, right? Mm-hmm. So this is amazingly healthy. I remember I went mountain biking for all day, and I thought about nothing but looking at the road and making sure that stuff like that is meditative, and it's true. It's good practice. So if you can find something like that in your day to train your mind to be aware of the present. Yeah. It sounds so new agey. And I think the me of 2 years ago would have been like, all right, just do it. Just do it. And the problem is that I used to be that guy. I used to be like, you want to lose weight? Just do it. You want to follow the keto diet? Just do it. If you have a craving for something, you want to cheat, just sit on your hands for 20 minutes. That craving is going to pass.
Just sheer will.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people like that. And those people don't understand those who are constantly fighting fat loss, addiction, a bad place they can't out, because for them, and there's a genetic component to that. Just some people are just like that. Mm-hmm. I have clients, I give them a plan, and then boom, they just follow it right through. And I got other clients, I don't know, things are going on. And I can say right now, after having COVID and a change in my lifestyle and trying to find ways to adapt, I can actually, and now I think of working out as I used to think of working out as a necessity. Now I think of it as a privilege, because if I have time to work out, man, I'm thinking, God damn it, thank God. Whereas a lot of people are thinking like, yep, going to the gym, it's my regular thing. And I just don't understand why everybody doesn't go to the gym. And so now I understand why that is. Now I understand how to have poor emotional management. And so, yeah, I've been on both sides of the coin. And I think it's really important for people who have not been on the both sides of the coin to just be nice. You don't understand what people are going through. And I don't still. I just don't understand that. I think I'm getting it. I think I'm getting why it's so hard to manage your emotions, why it's so hard to unravel that programming that you've had since childhood, very likely since childhood. But, yet this really didn't come really wasn't relevant because you had things under control in your environment. The moment things get a little bit out of your control, you have less and less control of your environment. This is when you got to rely on your own like ability to adapt emotionally, physically, routinely. What's my lifestyle like this? So yeah, listen, I can give you a routine. I can give you a meal plan, but man, those evenings or those weekends, when you're saying screw the plan, I really want a cookie. That's where I got to step back and say, like, this is all psychology now. This is on you. It's going to take, this is a lot of work, but if you can get it done, you're looking at changing the rest of your life. This is a lifelong, long-term solution. So yeah, things like Buddhism, things like Stoicism. I'm also attracted to these philosophies. What about you guys? I mean, what, you're seeing a therapist, I think, is so important.
It's been helping me a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about Nate. We don't talk about any specific like older schools of thought by name or anything. I remember when we were talking on the phone a couple months ago, you pointed out that I had kind of achieved some stoicism, and I didn't realize that's what I did. I just was kind of putting it into my own words, and it was a lot about acceptance. Just like a kind of a radical and very like universal and nebulous acceptance, and it was very powerful and very useful about myself, my strengths, my weaknesses, my circumstances, my environment, the things I can control, the things I can't control. When I can't accept, I accept that I can't. It was this kind of meta acceptance. It was beautiful. So I feel maybe in a kind of stubborn sense. I don't know if it's just pride, but I feel like I'm building my own ideology or my own philosophy. It's obviously been greatly influenced, but I feel like I'm rediscovering all the time. I don't feel like I'm saying I am a Buddhist or I'm taking from these things.
Yeah.
Yoga, I think, is something I'll be a bit more vocal about and clearly maybe, let's say, identify with, but it mirrors Buddhism a lot for obvious reasons, and sometimes just historical cultural influence, but also just, great minds think alike. Truth comes out sometimes of the woodwork, like one way or the other. So that's my vibe, sort of, and it's making me maybe realize that I should dip into these things again with that mentality and kind of reinforce or inform myself. So like, what else can I steal, so to speak, and become more Sammy? I don't know, but Nate, I don't know what do you feel?
Well, I think a lot of my process has been, especially because of the COVID situation, I think when it's interesting the way you put it, it's like the environment now is kind of destabilized. So if you don't have a strong internal foundation, you're going to be super destabilized. And I have this mechanism I've been doing my whole life, is just I can close off and just get into my bubble in my mind and then just kind of wait it out in a sense and then be back to normal. So I think COVID and the lockdown, all these kind of things, they amplified some very bad habits that kind of resurfaced. And these habits, I'm just starting to chip away at them and trying to reprogram the mind. And it's happening. But come to me a month or two ago, I was internally a giant mess, just negating any type of emotion and ordering food and just kind of tuning out and at those moments of silence, And it's now like, it's still a challenge, man. Sometimes at nighttime, I just have these moments of discomfort, and like I can picture it like a child kind of like squirming in their seat because they can't sit still. And then I would resort to bad habits, whether it's food or just watching like relentless repetitive TV shows just without any thinking. It just would tune out, But now I think things are starting to change because I'm trying to cut these patterns because I understand how toxic they are. And it's a work in progress. Whereas, like, you come to me a few years ago, I would be like the same as you. Just do it. Just like that would be my advice to anyone. Just do it. But now I'm on that side where I would give that advice to. I'm that person that I would have gave that advice to, and it's not necessarily the right advice. It's more like a compassionate, like self-hand walk through. Like I'm kind of way nicer to myself about the whole process, and just okay, you're not doing it yet, but our objective is getting there.
I like that.
I like that too.
You meet the person at the level they're ready. Kind of,
and I think I would have never known it had I not kind of fallen into that pitfall. Because I would.
We're experiencing very similar situations and being aware, and not not judgmental, not judging ourselves, and in being, I know we're always hardest on ourselves, but understanding like, wait a second, yeah, this has really brought out some of like the worst habits that I've tackled, but now it's all coming together. And I also find that I'm talking to myself, but it sounds like you guys are the same way. In doing so, you have more compassion for others.
Hugely.
Yeah.
And I think this is what's missing in the fitness industry. I was part of the fitness industry, man, and there are some fat shaming, toxic positivity,
That's a big one.
all these things, and I still see it. And I think, God damn it, I think I used to be that guy. My wife would be like, yes, you were. You're so
Yeah, I still see it sometimes. I think it can be, like you said, a maladaptive coping mechanism. Like it's just a way to be protective sort of something, and you're not ready for that thing to be reshaped or damaged or destroyed internally, or whatever that experience is externally for you. It's all internally in the end, right? So, and it's toxic positive. That's a great example, because there's something like it's inversion. Like you're taking you're taking something that should be good. Positivity is not a bad thing. Just keeping your head up high, being grateful, these things can be very useful until you're not capable of them, until you're not meeting that person at that level and holding their hand and bringing them to the next level. Because then you're just waving from a higher place and saying, jump, motherfucker. Like, what do you want from me? And the person's like, how did you get there? Send me a ladder, give me a map, and you're just like, figure it out. Pitter patter, bro. Come on, let's go. Like,
or man up.
Man up is a big one.
Man up. Yeah. Cowboy up, boy.
For real, man.
Put on your big boy pants.
That's it.
Together.
Yeah. You know what's a good one? Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Like
go. I like that one too.
It's literally physically impossible. But I mean, even toxic positivity is even more kind of like silent. There's just this, like, even you just now calling those maladaptive coping mechanisms toxic. I could twist that and say they're like a cast, and they might be useful for a time, but then they become restrictive. It's like there's so many tricky ways that we are shitting on ourselves, and there might be a lot of truth. I don't know if it's 100%, to just be like really super easy on ourselves. But if you're the kind of person that gets shut down, that gets like restricted or feels overwhelmed, and maybe that's all of us at a certain threshold, like just fucking go easy on yourself. Yeah. We're just going to die anyway. Like just stop taking it so seriously and take how you feel more seriously. And that does sound like a cop-out, and it can be maybe in a lot of circumstances, but I don't know. There has to be a balance. There has to be a middle there.
I think, obviously we're talking about like knowing your own tank and what you can do, but I think that social media has really taken the problem to the next level. And I mean, I used to post on that so much more regularly, and I got off, I think, because of the toxic positivity. Mm-hmm. And, people say like, just pivot your business and just do this. And, this is an amazing opportunity. It's like, yeah, it's okay. But look at the statistics. For real. Like we're admitting it. We're open men. We're open with our emotions, which I love. Right. We're having a hard time. Or a challenging time is a better way to say it. But look at the statistics. Average weight increase is 15 to 20 pounds. Drug use, all-time high. Alcohol sales, understandably. Depression, anxiety, mental health issues. Now we're looking at some really significant long-term issues, especially in the children. Lack of social interactions with others can also have long-lasting negative effects. So these are things that we can't ignore. And there's no amount of just pivot and just adapt and buy yourself a home gym. Yeah. And now's the perfect time, moms, to balance your family. And it's just so unrealistic for so many people. And, I think there was a comment made to me And I just brushed it off because, I used to be like work out all the time and everything like that. And they say like, dude, I'm so surprised you don't have a home gym. And my first thought like, it's expensive. But I'm thinking like, F you. Like, what? Like, I mean, I'd love to have a home gym and I'd love to have all that money to spend. And as you guys know, finding weights these days is just crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah. I got lucky, recently bought a kettlebell. It's my baby. I love it so much. It's like a toy. Yeah. Like I'm so happy that I have it. But I got a 35-pounder on Amazon for $66. And
that's not that bad.
I didn't get crazy shipping fees because it was heavy. I don't understand why I got it for so cheap. I don't know if it was just a window of opportunity. I have this app also. It's like a plugin for my browser called Keepa, Keepa.
Yeah.
And it creates a chart on the Amazon page for the item that shows you the price, the prices in the past, kind of like a stock. So you can see if it's like ridiculously high, like don't buy it right now. It's really useful. Yeah, it's very, very useful.
There's also, there's like, do you have the space for a home gym? Like I go outside, but
not
I mean, now like, how much, like I also got a kettlebell as well before this whole COVID thing.
Yeah.
But
they're the best.
I don't know. It's just one of those things where that's why I think that working out is more of a privilege now.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you used to deadlift 400 pounds, whatever, and now you're like, I can't even find 400 pounds of anything.
Yeah, go lift a car or something. Like, go grab the bumper.
I'll just do body squats. I'll just do push-ups. And you're trying to figure things out, but it's just not the same. You know what I mean? It's just... So
but also
realize,
the propensity for maladaptation in general, like you said, like all these things are like cofactors, and it's like, how were you raised? What are your belief systems and your subconscious psychology, like mechanisms? Like what ideations are you predisposed to, and all this complicated shit. Like if someone needs to squat deeper, like, okay, maybe you can find a kettlebell, maybe you can make one, maybe you can start doing pistol squats. Like you can find some really good ways to like, you can remove excuses, let's say, to get, but there's still all this other stuff. There's so much stuff. Humans are complicated. I have this joke. I don't know how to put it. Like, imagine you could see the spirituality of things. I feel like humans would be huge. I feel like we would be these massive, complicated, like just like cities of ideas and I don't know what. Like, we're just this human thing. We're just this body. We're like monkeys. Like, it's simple in a lot of ways, but we're just, there's so much association and so much confusion and so much rapid unconscious thinking and karma. Just like, we're just these crazy 4-dimensional snowballs, like just going in every direction. Like, it's a lot. It's a lot, man. we gotta be easy on ourselves.
Yeah, and I think that again, from an evolutionary perspective, we have lost that ability. We are overstimulating our emotions and our senses and our nervous system. And that overstimulation is not just watching a screen all day at work, but also using a screen to relax. That stuff is stimulation, right? I mean, I read a report last year that says that social interaction through a screen is not the same way because there's so many other dimensions that you're missing, right? So I see you guys in 2 dimensions. I can't smell you. I can't. I guess that's a good thing. I don't know.
It's the first one I thought of too, though. It's weird. It's a thing.
But we have shown that social interaction over online is not the same way. You do not get that oxytocin and that serotonin as you would with in-person contact.
Yeah.
And that obviously has its roots in evolution. We've never been evolved to form online relationships. So what are the consequences of that? Well, we're seeing it right now. Heightened anxiety, depression, isolation, loneliness, maladaptive coping mechanisms with drugs, alcohol, and food. Yeah. And this, I always go back to the evolution in order to understand why am I feeling this way. when you're talking about anger, you made me think of this perfect example of being in traffic. Someone cuts you off. You take it personally. This guy doesn't know you. You don't know him, but you're thinking, how dare he treat me with such disrespect? That had an immense benefit when we lived in a small community because we all knew each other. And you had to protect your status, your reputation in that. So therefore, it was completely valid for you to get angry because you knew that Thog is a dick. And you need to fight for, fight for your right. But that is exactly what road rage is all about. It's a maladaptive anger based on something that you understand. Like, yeah, this guy did something wrong. I probably did it to someone else at one point. I know I have.
Yeah,
like, well, sorry. He's like fingers like, oh, how rude. Okay. But now, damn, now you understand the evolutionary basis of it. You understand your emotions. As soon as you start getting pissed, now we're mindful. Now that we're being mindful after listening to this podcast, right? You're thinking like, hey, wait, that's not Thog. Yeah. That's just a dude that took it really angry and he took it personally and I took it personally. Yeah. And, my wife has some funny stories now that I really don't get angry. And you're going to get some people who are like really pissed off at me because they think that I cut in front of them in front of the line. And they get even angrier seeing how serene I am.
I love that, right? It's like there's it's like
if I'm pissed at
base
you,
amount
being
of
like,
anger.
oh, Mr. Cool, I'd be like, just
yeah.
It can go both ways. It can calm someone down, or it can just amplify their anger. At least in my experience, it's always amplified. But it has happened that when you approach it in that calmer manner, it kind of cools the situation. But yeah, my friend had a great quote. He's like, "Anger is you're drinking the poison and expecting your enemy to die." It's like it just doesn't work, right?
Well said. I like that.
I love that quote, and it's a great way to see it. But now I'm seeing why these mindfulness practices and these, I think it was 4 or 5 pillars that you're talking about. They are almost, they're necessary, but especially in today's times, because today's times are built off unconscious behaviors, and it's marketing that unconscious mind in a lot of sense. So it's these practices really, it's like we have evolved into a city now. We have these mechanisms that are hitting our chimp brains, and it's not needed. A chimp brain is not really needed in this environment. So we need to really amplify the meditative process and the unprogramming of these ancient evolutionary mechanisms, because they're just not serving us in this environment. So it's like a clear example in modern world is like at nighttime after my day of work, I can take my phone out and do the Uber Eats and whatever, and that would just be that mechanism of whatever survival back then. It would have been useful in that time frame, but right now it's going to be working against me. So creating that mindfulness practice, stopping before I click the button, just that alone is breaking those patterns, and then repetition on that, you create momentum, and that's how you're going to kind of turn these patterns off.
And we can talk about tricks on how to do that. I have been looking up on that and trying what works and what doesn't work, because it's very individual. But you did remind me that we did talk about the 4 pillars, and I only mentioned 3.
Yeah.
The 4th one is by following the Eightfold Path. If you're thinking correctly, feeling correctly, treating people correctly, treating yourself correctly, all these things will lead to nirvana, right? Enlightenment. In our parlance, that actually means authenticity. You become an authentic person, which means that when you've lost your business and your business is up in flames, you're angry, let it out. Be angry. You have a complete right to be angry. When someone's treating you badly and it makes you feel sad, be sad. These are authentic people. And authentic people also understand that if there's a dick who's treating them badly, they're not going to get insulted, because they're saying like, yeah, this is your problem. I like who I am.
Empathy.
And they understand with politeness. Yeah. They're like, well, listen, I got to go. It was nice meeting you, and going out. And they just come back and they're like, well, that person's got a lot of issues. Nothing to do with me. I think that'd be amazing to live your life like that, fully authentic.
It's such a run-on effect too, because you start seeing the benefit, and then it becomes its own anticipatory mechanism. And I mean that's maybe a trap. You know, a lot of times these spiritual levels all have let's say a seat for the ego, if you will. And it's funny that you brought up nirvana, because I recently learned that the word translates to no self. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah. So it's
like know thyself?
No, like N-O, like not a person anymore. Like, I mean, we could have some fun with that pun for sure, but it is the same thing. That's kind of what I'm getting at, because when you meditate and you start creating this space between your ability to observe, your kind of base self, versus vis-a-vis your body and your mind, there's this trinity that occurs, and you really create a distance, so that there's more lag, there's a bigger ping between what's going on in your exterior life and how your interior life reacts. So you literally become, by knowing yourself better, you kind of become less of a person, and you become more of this just like immutable awareness, you know, like this magical, beautiful thing, you know, that you tap into when you meditate eventually. And there's that synonymous thing. There's you know, enlightenment can feel more tangible these days, maybe, and be like just this brighter, easier way of living. And then but nirvana literally does mean you're not a guy, you're not a person anymore, you know, which might be kind of freaky and scary, but like we could play with that middle ground where the practice of meditation is literally creating like distance, like just literally space, so that when something occurs, you don't like da-da-da and react. And they talk about it in Buddhism. We learn about it in Vipassana. Like there's gonna be, I've brought it up in the podcast before. It's a perfect example. The Dalai Lama said, like, don't beat yourself up if you get startled. Like if you hear a gunshot and you go like that's normal, you know. So like you'll get angry. You gotta express that, let it out, acknowledge it, accept it. But anything past that, the guilt of feeling it, the shame, the defense mechanism, all of that can be whittled away and eventually completely halted. Those are more of a choice. And that is just really good. It's worth talking about. It's worth pointing out. And the Buddhism is just like a laundry list of practices to enhance that.
Yeah.
It's like a blueprint.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is why, because I actually met the Dalai Lama on 2 separate occasions. Cool. Yeah. I did my master's in Dharamsala in northern India on Tibetan Highlanders. And while I was there, I was helping this guy from Philadelphia teach English to the Tibetan refugees. And it just so happened that the Dalai Lama was in town. I think it was, I want to say May, maybe March, one of those M months, where he gives a public meditation. And I remember going for it. And I was not the kind of guy who can stay cross-legged for 3 hours. I was just so uncomfortable. And the place was so tight. We heard rumors that Uma Thurman and Richard Gere were there as well. I hadn't seen them, but at the time they were really into Tibetan Buddhism. Oh, and that guy from Beastie Boys too, Adam. Anyway, so obviously it's not cool to be starstruck when you're there, but like I'm mentioning it now as if like I'm just name dropping.
Yeah.
Just let you know that, oh man. And I was like, while he was speaking Tibetan, we had headphones because there were translators who were speaking French, English, and German. And I went for one day and it was a 3-day thing. And I just said, I couldn't. I was just so uncomfortable. I was getting annoyed with the translator. We're supposed to be learning how to meditate and it was free. But several weeks later, the Dalai Lama was having a special dinner for foreign people who are helping the Tibetan community, the refugees. And the teacher, the English teacher from Philadelphia, was invited, and he asked me to be his +1 because I was helping him teach English through song. I play guitar, you know, and
nice. And
Tibetans love songs. They love songs. So I was singing Careless Whisper by, I didn't know how to play, but I learned it because, man, they love songs. And REM, Everybody Hurts. Easy song to play. Classic. But now I'd be walking in the streets and I could hear behind me, everybody would be like, oh, okay.
You're that guy, yeah.
So I was invited to have dinner with, well, not with him, but for that occasion, we met him.
That's cool.
So that was a great aspect of it. And when anybody who meets him will understand how humble this guy is, and he makes you feel as if it's a pleasure for him to meet you. And even back then, I think I was 27 years old, just a few years ago.
Wink, wink.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was like way, way different. But back then I thought like, oh my God, that's how I want other people to feel after I meet them, to make them feel as if they're the best thing. Meeting them is the best thing that happened to me today. And that's how he made me feel. And that's how I made everybody feel.
Yeah, people open a door for you sometimes when they're maybe in either direction. But I mean, I don't want to fluff your ego, but like I've had a great time knowing you, man. You've really helped me out when I was depressed, and like you just gave me your time, and I get a feeling now that it's like a light that shined through him, shined into you, and shined into me now. It's kind of like we get permission to be less and less shitty. And I mean, maybe I'm just trying to be careful with my words, but we're trying and activating some kind of niceness, and that's really cool. I like that.
Well, it taps into that quote that everyone talks about. It's like, treat others the way you want to be treated. And it's like you experience that kind of feeling from the Dalai Lama, and it's like, wow, I felt incredible. Like I want to make people feel that way. It's like when you feel a piece of the truth, let's say, you want to share it. You don't want to hold on to it. So it's this, he made you feel this way just by being present and just by greeting you and saying hello. And it was such pure love and presence that it's like, fuck, like this is how I want to lead my life, Yeah.
Yeah. It was, and I didn't go for that trip for that. I just happened to be there when it happened. And I wasn't a meditating kind of guy at all. I wasn't even sporty,
Really?
I was just long-haired, want to travel, bro, and check it out, and travel the world kind of thing. And we thought that the Dharamsala was definitely a beautiful place and magical. Sure. Anyway, so that was definitely a life-changing moment. And I think that when you're not living a reactive life, and I was blessed and I always say you should always travel to other cultures because it does shake your reality. And once you come back, not from a resort or a perfectly planned thing, but you need to have experienced the bad with the good and understand that, my trip was so shitty. No, I learned like that. What I learned from that, I got like, ooh, that made me realize how lucky I have it. When you're a white dude, again, I'm very privileged that I was able to travel on my own as a white male. I'll own it. I don't think
it's a type of passport. I really realized it as well.
A Canadian passport, absolutely.
Oh,
yeah.
that having that, but I meant being a white dude is like a biological type of passport. Yeah, but being Canadian really
that it does help too.
Yeah, it does. It really
does. You can go around the world and like it.
Everyone loves you automatically.
Yeah, so you get that experience, and I can't say how it would be for anybody else, but I was blessed. I did make it out alive, and I did have some unpleasant experiences as I did have pleasant, but nevertheless, you came back with the ability to explore yourself, to really understand, holy crap, my culture is shitty because of this, but my culture is amazing because of this. And when you're in other cultures and you have these conversations with locals, it's mind-opening. And I really, I'll say it, listen, take a break from school after you finish a degree or even before, it doesn't matter, but take the time to travel around cultures that are very dissimilar to your own. That's what my recommendation is.
There's nothing as mind-blowing to see how differently people live on the planet. But then when you talk to them, like you said, how similar everybody is. Yeah. It's really enlightening. Like there's no other way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was in Thailand, I I had one memory. It's a random one, but it sticks. I was just on my scooter, just fucking off nowhere, and just going on a road, you know. And I remember I got kind of lost, and I was seeing like these farmers like betting on chickens. I guess they were doing like a chicken auction. But I remember seeing like four. Yeah, it was weird.
It could have been a cockfight. You sure?
No, it might have been, but they were on like these pedestals, and they were all throwing money. Maybe it was pre-fight. They're all. I don't know. I didn't stick around long enough.
You don't even know what you were looking at.
Yeah,
You're just like,
it's just
what
like
the
that.
fuck?
Like,
Yeah.
But then I remember distinctively seeing like 4 or 5 kids, 4 years old, 5, maybe up to 9 years old, like very young, and they were like, their house was a kind of. It looked almost like one of those container houses, those container ships, like very small, kind of a mess. And there was trash on the left of the house, just like piles of garbage and recycling and just old boxes. And these kids made a slide at the top of this little trash hill. And they were all going down and cheering and laughing, and one after another. And I just driving by, and I remember it was like a 3-second look, like glaze, and then I continued. But I remember I'm like, fuck, they're having just as much fun as anyone else in any part of the world who has like a home or whatever. They're just joy. They're experiencing joy, and joy is not reliant on getting that slide in your backyard or having like a nice set of toys. Like, joy is joy, and you can experience it in all avenues. And it was very humbling because it made me rethink how we go about creating that or creating that joy within and in our environment. It's very externalized, you know.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's the second noble truth, right? The basis of suffering is desire. If those children say, this sucks, I want a real park, they'll all be sad.
That's it.
But they don't have that desire. Therefore, they're having the best time of their lives.
It's a
Absolutely.
mind fuck. Yeah. It's like,
This is something that we should incorporate into our lives. Being grateful, like, amazing, we got a garbage slide.
Yeah. But
that's it. It's like they don't deserve your pity as much as you think.
They're having a blast.
And you deserve more pity, sort of, like in a way, like you look at your own life, like it's mind blowing.
There's one of our mutual friends, Mathieu. He had a great quote, and I don't know what to make of it, but it applies to this. It was like I don't think it was his quote. It might have been Jesus, but the last shall be first, and the first shall be last. It's like
Bob Dylan.
That's Bob Dylan. It might be. But it makes so much sense. It's like the first shall be last. We're just so occupied by getting more and more and more. And those who have almost nothing kind of find this sense of peace. I'm generalizing hugely, but I'm saying is they have way more core values than a lot of us who just have all this externalized resources. And because you see it in the numbers and the statistics, depression rates are super high, where we should be living in enlightenment with what we have. Like we have it all, quote unquote. We have the money to buy whatever we need and to buy any kind of food we want at the grocery store, but yet the numbers are showing that depression's increasing. So it makes you wonder, what do we really have, and what are we first for when we're actually might be last for a lot of things?
Have you guys ever heard of what is it called? Morte, Amore Morte.
Oh, sure. Jesus, I can't remember.
The love of death, or to think of death. I don't even know if it's right.
Hold on. It was a German guy. Memori Morti or something like that. I don't know. Maybe we're not talking about the same thing now.
Memori Morti, I think that's the one. Yeah, remember death.
Yeah.
And
Max
what you're saying exactly what we should be thinking about, because when you're on your deathbed, you imagine it. Who do you want there to be? Who are you surrounded with? What are you going to tell them? Like, listen, before I die, I want to give you my piece of advice. And they say like, hey, grandfather, what do you regret in your life? Who's going to say, I wish I had more Instagram followers. I wish I had a better car. I wish that I had gone to the gym more often. No. Because when at the end of your life, you're going to look back and you think, what were the most important things to me? And it's almost always going to be your family, your relationships, your friends, your children, all these people. And this is what we forget, because we don't think about death. But memori morti, remember that one day we're all going to die. And so you're going to regret those not spending enough time with your kid, thinking I'm too busy to work. And we're all trapped there. So I remember this. And every time this is why we spoke about this last time, why I get up at 4:30, my reasoning to get all my stuff that I need to get done as fast as possible, because I already know that when I get back from work, I'm not working. I'm spending time with my family. And a lot of people think like, oh, you know what? I'm so overloaded. Can I do this? Can I do that? I feel this way too. But, memore morti, when I die, you know, what's going to be the cat in the cradle kind of shit? I don't want that kind of stuff, you know?
It's almost like it's kind of full circle. Like we talked about just pressure creating like a good stress, you know, like that's like a spiritual pressure, like just this overarching, like, this is a truth. We're going to die. This is going to end. Yeah. And it kind of makes me think of like inner child work when you're doing like psychotherapy. Like it's about, what do you really want? What have you always wanted? And at the beginning and at the end of your life, everything just gets crammed into this instant that you call like your life. And you realize you just wanted like the good food and the love and the be happy and to make other people happy and hard work too, and the ups and the downs and the contrast. And you just, you know, I'm probably romanticizing death a little bit here, but I feel like people who have the luxury of being kind of aware that they're passing, you reach enlightenment. You just kind of hit this like, you know, like it is what it is. It was what it was. See you in the next one. You know,
if we're lucky to die of natural causes.
Yeah, well, yeah. Some people, like, something whizzes through their skull and they just like they get turned off. And I don't know what that experience is like.
Wait, I didn't have time to do this.
Yeah, just no. I don't know, man.
Oh, I should have posted that Instagram post earlier.
but this is example. It just shows you how unvaluable that really is, and how much weight we put on it in our actual life. But if you put that example into deathbed, that's the last of anyone's mind, is what they're thinking about, is the Instagram likes and posts. But we put so much weight on it from our day-to-day life. Not all of us, but a lot of us are just absorbed in this time-wasting experience. When if you put that deathbed scenario and you brought it up to them, they wouldn't talk about anything to do with social media.
Or they'd be like, God, you're so morbid. Who can't blame them? Like, I think about death because maybe I, trying to be more self-aware. But absolutely. But think about all this is based on evolution. That dopamine fix, that social acceptance, that, oh my God, people love me. It's fake, right? We know this. It's fake, but damn, we're making money off of this. They're influencers. Yeah. There's, it's, man, like it, I wouldn't say it pisses me off, but I'm thinking like, damn, I could have become an influencer and I could have been a millionaire, but wow, I think I'd be so depressed because my income is based on my ability to post and to post and to post and to post, and to realize that I got to be always on. Cause let's face it, we don't post about when we're sad, most of us. Yeah. Or going through a hard time, or things are just not ideal or whatever. Anyway, so you just got to understand that, our online lives are filtered, and
it's a mask on top of a mask.
Yeah, it's not the F word I was going to use, but it's fake.
It's true. Yeah. It's only showing the best of each moment. And that can be so damaging for people that aren't in that best of their moment. And seeing that, if you're in a depressed state or whatever, and you're just seeing everyone's just posting smiles and just at the gym. And, I saw a breakdown. A lot of these influencers who like take photos in like beautiful Lamborghinis, like someone broke down how it actually happens. And they go and they rent these Lamborghinis. They have they go near like a rich property and they take the photo in like their best suit. And then they return the car right after. And that was like their photo shoot.
Fake it till you make it.
But so people see that, and then, yeah, that could motivate 0.1% of the population, but it's doing way more damage than positivity.
It's look what I have. It's very damaging. Yeah. Even I don't want to get too complicated, but like a lot of people are noticing this and then trying to get ahead of the curve and be like, okay, like how do I change the mask so that people still like it? And then you start showing vulnerability. You start saying, oh, I'm not wearing makeup today, or like, oh, look, I was crying because blah. And that's better. I see the value in that, obviously, because of what you just talked about, but it's still a mask on a mask. This is simulacra. This is scary. If you're not careful, there is almost nothing of reality left over, because we are projecting a personality in real life. And now we are projecting. Sorry?
What if you have sponsors? What if your social media is your income? What if it's your business?
Yeah. That's squirrely, man.
How real can you get?
That is weird. Yeah. That is weird. That is weird territory.
I think if you're going to be authentic, I think you understand that you need to really be clear about why you're using social media, what for. And that's actually my plan, understanding that I'm not a big fan of social media anymore. At the time I was, but what I want to use social media for is for zero cost knowledge. I love teaching. I love talking on podcasts like this. I love discussions and things like this. And I think that I would love to use social media for me, but I really don't want to spend the time on it. So got a job, not relying on social media as a form of income and everything. Here's my money. And I'll hire someone who loves social media. Let them become depressed. Posting pictures of stuff, you know. That's awesome. That's the plan. That's the plan. We'll catch up in a year from now, where I have like way more of a social media presence.
That's such a funny image. I mean, we're all working, like, no one likes their job 100% of the time, you know. So I'm just picturing some person, like, you're delegating. It's a smart thing to do, but like they're like, fuck, bro. It's like, I could be doing this for myself, or like, I wanted to go outside today. Like, it's literally just a job for them. But it's depressing. I don't like it either. I love the podcast. I love the ability to do this, but like, there's so much. There's so much. It's a yin yang thing, you know. Like, there's so much I don't like about it, but it's worth it. And it's like, you got to find the balance, because that's a shell. That's a part of your existence within the bigger experience that also needs to be balanced. And it's like, this gets complicated. But it's the baby and the beast. You know, you have to.
I don't know how you guys did it. Yet, are you consistent with your content? Yeah, exactly. And they're like,
he did. Hey, dude, he did the brunt, man. He got the brunt of it.
It's hitting the red line though, because I'm like you. The social media is just getting to me, and I just, you know, I think it's at a point where the podcast is incredible. We won't stop doing it, but the marketing aspect is just not my soul. That's not where I like to be. Yeah. You know, but it's unfortunate that the reality is that that's the kind of avenue you have to take when you go down these public routes. Until we can delegate.
I think that if you do have that zero cost mentality, we're doing a podcast because we love doing it.
That's it.
The moment you think, I need to monetize this somehow, it will remove the authenticity of it.
That's it.
Then, because now I got to market the crap out of it. I got to sell it. I got to say, remember, everybody, subscribe and like.
Yeah, we just started doing that, actually. We realized we hadn't been doing it for the whole time. We're like, guys, 80% of you are not subscribed. Like, help us out.
Yeah, you got to upsell. You got to, absolutely. And
it puts a fly in the ointment, for sure.
There you go. Thank you. Yeah. So I love the idea of a podcast. I think you guys love the podcast itself, but it's that stupidness, not stupidness, the necessities. Of surrounding that podcast. You obviously want people to listen to this podcast. I think it's an amazing podcast. I've listened to a few.
Thank you.
I think you guys are just like authentic. You know, you're not afraid to keep it not sterilized, but programmed. You know, so I've been on podcasts where I was given a list of questions, and we have a tight time schedule, and that's fine. You know, there's no set format. But you guys basically have like, let's just talk. And I like that.
That's the curiosity of the two chimps over here.
I don't think we would do it any other way. Like, it's the best.
It's just not us.
Yeah.
Like, we spoke about it from the beginning when we started this. It's just like, from our first episode, we just showed up and talked, and then we never changed the format since.
We never stopped.
I think the first place we had like a time constraint because we were renting the studio. And I'm telling you, just having that limit, both of our personalities don't do well with like limits or boundaries. So me and him, just for having an hour conversation, at the 55-minute mark, we felt like it was amping up, and we got a little bit upset that it was ending. We had to end it at 1 hour. So then we built this place, and now it's just, we go.
Well, it looks good, guys.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to having it in person one day.
Yes, we would love to have you in
It's
physically one day.
Guys. I'm in nutrition, but we didn't talk about nutrition today.
I guess we could wrap it up. I don't know how much extra time you have, but like I had a bunch of ideas of like food, like food labeling. He wanted to ask more questions about dopamine,
and fasting and all that.
All right, well let's hit these questions. If they're directed, I'll be there.
Let's. I think we did this last time too. Like we do a rapid fire. I've been drinking coffee lately because I think I have ADHD. What do you have any thoughts on that?
You have a problem? Are you having any issues sleeping?
No. Well, yeah, you fixed that actually. You actually helped me with that, with like turning the lights off, red filters, waking up at the same time every day, even on the weekends. Like, so it's working out.
Yeah, no, coffee is one of those really complex things that is so genetically determined. Whether you're a slow metabolizer or a fast metabolizer, the best thing for you to understand is like saying, I think we all know it intuitively. If I have one more cup, I'm going to get the jitters. If I have one more cup, I'm going to get an upset stomach. Understanding that the reason why caffeine, how caffeine works, it blocks the adenosine receptors in your brain.
Oh, no, I'm not.
So as soon as you wake up, you basically have a buildup of adenosine, which adenosine is part of your DNA, right? But it's just a compound that just builds up throughout the day. And this is called sleep pressure. And what happens is that like you have this like metaphorical dam, and adenosine builds up. And then when it reaches the dam, you have this overwhelming desire to fall asleep. This is completely independent of your circadian rhythm. It's basically a plan B. So if I ask you, like, do you go to bed like exhausted? And you said like, yeah. I said like, listen, you're always relying on plan B. It's going to mess you up because you're ignoring your circadian rhythm by watching Netflix up until 2 a.m. in the morning and always on your phone. So that's what caffeine can do. And if you're using caffeine too much, you build a resistance. That dam gets higher and higher and higher and higher. So then it can affect your sleep quality. So if I ask you, does your caffeine intake affect your sleep quality? And you say, no, I don't see a problem with it. You got people who can drink 6 espressos right before bedtime. It has no effect. You got some people that's just like, no way. So
I take days off. I drink a small amount. I dilute it with water, which ruins the taste a little bit, but I can't drink hot liquids. But I also I make it at home. I have a good quality coffee that I don't remember the brand name right now, but like when you drink like McDonald's or like Starbucks coffee, it has like 7 times more caffeine. So like even if you get a small,
it's a great coffee.
You will get the jitters. Yeah, like it's for people who have a tolerance. So like the fact that I take a day or 2 off every week and like I'm actually thinking of it, I'm treating it with respect. Like it's a powerful like stimulant. It's a drug, So yeah. Do you have
does it mess with your because if you're doing intermittent fasting or going for like a 48-hour fast or even a 3-day fast, having coffee, does that start the digestive process?
No, well, there's 0 calories in black coffee.
Okay.
Right? So it won't negatively affect your fast. But here's where I can see that it might affect your stress levels. Because if your cortisol is up, and listen, cortisol is natural. It gets you up in the morning. Caffeine will raise that cortisol even more.
Okay.
If you have chronic stress and that cortisol is always up, and all of a sudden you spike it in the morning, then we have anxiety levels and stress levels. And then we have to ask, like, why am I intermittent fasting? Is it to lose fat? You're not going to be losing fat. That cortisol is blocking fat mobilization. Is it to be aware and to get like the brain-derived neurotropic factor? No, that cortisol is messing that too. So you understand the role that coffee can play is not necessarily due to I'm fasting, but due to why are you fasting? What's your goal?
Okay.
Because if you let it go, like I've been fasting for 5 days and, I'm not sleeping well. And all of a sudden on Saturday, you just binge because that elastic just snapped.
It's not necessarily good.
That's what happened to me. That's how I developed nighttime feeding, overfeeding syndrome.
I see.
Nighttime eating disorder.
There we go.
That's exactly what happened.
I'm curious because I kind of understand how calories work. it's pretty complicated, but like I feel like coffee is something needs to be processed. Like I feel like it does break the fast. It just nets 0 calories, or maybe it just doesn't have anything that will make you fat in it, but you're still like putting something in the system that, though is mostly water, is a lot of this bean, like this mineral, like this very, like, you know, sometimes you have a little bit of like the grain like left in the coffee, and you just go like, "Wah!" Like it's this like really intense thing. So I don't, is there any, like, is that true at all, do you find, or is it really just like doesn't break the fast?
Black coffee has no calories. So calories come from 4, usually 5. Let me put in 5. The 3 main ones are carbohydrates, fats, and protein. We also have ketones, which are produced endogenously. We also have alcohol that can produce calories as well. Apart from that, nothing. So coffee is basically just bean water, right? But if we go back to that cortisol, what it can do is like, no, you're not taking in calories, but you might actually be compromising your ability to burn calories from your fat stores.
Because
that's
stressed.
Where the issue is.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
What about vitamins while you fast? Taking like vitamin supplements with your water. Is that kind of, well, I guess there's no sugars in it, but like vitamin D and B12 and all those kind of things during your fast, would that affect your fast at all?
Depends on how sensitive you are. The main things that's going to break your fast is omega-3, because they are fats, right? But it's highly individual, because these are essential fats, and if your body needs them, they're not going to burn them for energy. They're going to incorporate them into your nervous system, into your brain. But it's not just essential fats that are in that fish capsule. There are other fats that will be used for energy. Okay. But, okay, you're taking 2 capsules. Oh my God. Is it going to transiently break your fast? Maybe if you're ultra sensitive. But the fact is that your body is not a 100% efficient absorber of calories, right? It's true. Your body decides what to do with what, when, and where, based on your current metabolic state, your age, your environment. So it's a very, very difficult question to answer. But apart from that, if you are taking vitamin supplements like vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin E, no, they won't break your fast. You need to experiment to understand, like, my stomach doesn't feel good with these supplements. If you're talking about apple cider vinegar, that's acetic acid. Those are actually going to be producing ketones in your gut, which will be used by your gut bacteria as a source of energy. But will some of them be absorbed by your gut? Possibly. Will they break your fast? Likely not, but possible. So these are all very, very individual, and that's why you need to experiment and to understand, why am I fasting? Is it that important to be completely fasted? Because even if you do drink apple cider vinegar or omega-3, guaranteed there's what? 2-3 calories?
You're right. Yeah.
It's nothing. It's nothing. You're going to go right back into a fully fasted mode in minutes, if not seconds.
Fair point. It's true. We get so religious sometimes with these
fanatic like crazy.
So, you don't want to bitch out, man. It's the same as the cold showers. You want to make sure you're doing it right, and you always feel like you're cheating yourself or copping out or something. Yeah.
Actually, I wanted to ask you about immunity, because right now with these COVID measures and all these things,
it's a huge topic for sure.
It's a big topic, and I think as a Ph.D. in nutrition, does it frustrate you? And maybe you could have some advice, because the whole idea about immune systems and just strengthening it is not really spoken about in the media. And I'm just wondering, like, if you have some little tips and advices and things you can
really good.
Lead us into that direction.
Yeah, we've had this conversation and several times, and we do see, obviously, those with metabolic disorders have a much higher rate of hospitalization and death by catching COVID. Right now, with any virus, there's only one way to kill it, and that's our immune systems. All right. So we need to have a strong immune systems, and we know stress, obesity, diabetes, poor sleeping, all these compromise your immune system, all of them. And so we definitely absolutely see that these are the at-risk population. Now we're seeing younger and younger and younger people and thinking like, oh my gosh, even healthy people. But you're thinking like, are they healthy? Are younger people healthy? As a professor, I know that my students, the anxiety and depression from online learning is through the roof. So they might be physically healthy, but mentally, and their immune system is a systemic thing. It doesn't matter whether you got a 6-pack. They don't care. No. If you are stressed emotionally, you're not sleeping well, your immune system is going to absolutely take
It's that tank again, like you said, right?
Absolutely. And we do have, you've heard the reports about vitamin D being so effective against COVID. Well, this is something that I looked into a little bit more, and it's so funny. I was so excited because I told my colleague about this the following day when I was thinking about vitamin D, and I'm thinking like, okay, yeah, that's an important component of our immune system. But the problem is that people were supplementing with vitamin D, and it didn't seem in clinical controlled studies, supplementing vitamin D did not seem to affect the rate of it. And I thought, I don't think it's vitamin D. I think it's sunlight. I think that sunlight's just got so much more benefits. And sure enough, yes, we see that people who are exposed to more sun have lower rates of hospitalization. And so I thought, well, if it's not vitamin D, it might be nitric acid. So what's nitric acid? Have you heard of nitric acid? NO?
No. Nitric acid.
So this is how Viagra works. So nitric oxide is actually...
Tell me more.
It's produced in your skin by exposure to UVA, whereas vitamin D is produced by UVB.
Okay.
Right? So sunlight exposure does seem to increase nitric oxide production in your skin cells. And it's a vasodilator. It dilutes your blood vessels. This is an amazing part of your cardiovascular system. But we also have different isoforms, different variations based on where the tissues are. It's not really clear cut. There's a lot of overlap. But when the scientists discovered this is just like one molecule of nitrogen, one molecule of oxygen. It's a gas. It's very transient. They detected it in the 1980s. Because as soon as you die, how do you detect a gas that's transient? It's almost impossible. But now we can measure it. It's made from arginine, which means that you have to have an adequate source of protein as well. So you have nitric oxide in your immune system. You have nitric oxide in your cardiovascular system, and you have nitric oxide in your nervous system. So we call it, for your immune system, they actually call it INOS. So inducible nitric oxide synthase, which is the enzyme that makes it. ENOS, endothelium, which are the muscles that line all the blood vessels in your body, endothelial nitric oxide synthase, ENOS, and then NNOS for neuronal nitric oxide synthase. So these things they're potent messengers. And since they're such an amazing component for your cardiovascular system, your nervous system, and your immune system, it explains so much of why sunlight is so beneficial for us. So much more that even if you control for smoking, it's so much better for you. So let's give an example that you have a person who's a chain smoker, but who goes outside all the freaking time. They're going to outlive the person who is avoiding the sun, but is a non-smoker.
Interesting.
Even if you have skin cancer, your ability to outlive people who have never been to the sun. Like I actually got to be careful about saying that. But yeah, if you're a sun avoider or if you lather on sunscreen all the time, yeah, your chances of outliving someone who's actually had skin cancer are actually low, believe it or not.
Like the absolute risk is less.
Yeah, so we're going to be like all-cause mortality.
Yeah. That's crazy, dude.
Yeah, so we understand how sunlight
right?
is so important. And we know this. Scottish doctors are now prescribing a 45-minute walk in sunlight as an antidepressant because research shows that it's as effective as an SSRI, a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. Wow. If you can do it in nature, bonus.
Yeah, the green light spectrum apparently has some effect as well. Like we were talking about blue light affecting circadian rhythm, and I was looking it up, and it turns out green has an effect as well, which is stupid because I have a green night light that I guess I need to throw out now.
Well, E.O. Wilson coined this term. E.O. Wilson's like this famous biologist. He coined this term that I love. It's called biophilia, the love of life.
Nice.
This explains why we love to have flowers in our hospital room, and research shows that the more plants that we have in our hospital rooms, the faster our recovery rate. Anxiety is lower in those who are surrounded by nature. The Japanese invented a term called forest bathing. I'm not going sunbathing, I'm going forest bathing, which they understand that being in proximity to other living organisms I feel better.
Yeah.
And so we can compare that in studies compared to those who go jogging in city streets, compared to those who go jogging in forests.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we try to correct with environmental pollution, we see that there's massive benefits of being in nature, outdoors.
It's funny you mentioned pollution, because when I'm in a forest or something, I picture like plants give off oxygen. So yeah. I imagine that I'm in some kind of bubble or some kind of like pure atmosphere that is like it's just very different functionally, like a better air quality, and it's like this plume or this like a bubble and I recently went to the botanical gardens, and I was like, you feel it, like you just feel it, you feel better, you feel good. Even though I'm in the middle of a city, I just like the green, the colors, the different plants, the thicker tree areas. Like the air smells better. Everything, it's hard to put your finger on, but it's a type of bath. It's cleansing. It's really something. Yeah, that's something.
If I was to ask you, Sammy, personally, if you were like oceans, mountains, or forests, which one appeals to you personally?
Shit, that's a
or
tough
what
one.
Natural environment. It could be grasslands, it could be tundra, it could be like you're thinking like, yeah, if I close my eyes and I'm thinking like, this is my most peaceful environment where I go. What do you picture?
Oh, it's a tough one. Mountains are a close one, but I might actually say a forest. Like for a real, like a in the zone kind of, because you could relax at a beach too, but like it gets hot. There's there's something about a forest where I feel in the zone. It's not just that I'm like relaxed, that I'm really calm, like you said. Like I'm really, so I don't know.
Would it be a temperate forest? Would it be a tropical forest? Will it be?
I think a little cool, a little, like a little on the cold side.
Yeah.
A little sweater weather, maybe like a little cold, a little bit cold.
Couple of a coniferous forest kind of thing, a little bit.
I don't know. I'm just picturing like I love that feeling of being like, it's like sweater weather, but like because we like the cold a little bit. Like you can take the sweater off and have that little nippy feeling, and there's something about the air. Just I feel like I'm being nourished. I feel like I'm drinking the air.
Sounds
in
great.
This moment, right?
You're taking me there.
What about you, Nate? What about your environment?
I think same as Sammy, a forest, but more of like on a summer day, like just a hot environment. So maybe more tropical. But yeah, I asked me this 10 years ago, I would tell you beach 10 times out of 10.
Yeah.
But
do
now,
you have one as well?
Yeah, now it's just forest for me.
I'm close on mountain. I don't know.
Yeah, mountains. There's no doubt that, if you're in the middle of the mountains, you're going to feel amazing. If you're by the ocean, you'll feel amazing. And that's the idea, right? We are instantly evolutionarily tied to these environments because that's where we evolved. Yeah. And I'm thinking, what are the environments of our ancestors? If we trace it, go back far enough, it's Africa. But if we're white skinned, it's because some of these Homo sapiens left Africa with a little bit of a small gene pool, and that gene pool allowed for genetic variation based on selective natural selection because of environmental pressures. We didn't have access to much sunlight. It got colder. If you're from Europe, most likely you ran into the Neanderthals. How'd they do it? Well, this is interesting. I actually incorporated this into my presentation that Neanderthal genes, if you're from Europe, 1 to 4% of your genes are actually Neanderthal, which means we bred with them. And they conferred some advantages and disadvantages. And one advantage was your ability to withstand polyaromatic carbons, wood smoke. if you're going to be living up north, you better be making fire all the freaking time. And it seemed that Neanderthals had developed this detoxification system in order to be around wood smoke a lot more.
Wow, that's fascinating.
And when Homo sapiens came around, and bred with them, this was obviously selected for because it created a benefit. So now, apparently wood smoke is not as cancerous for those with the Neanderthal gene.
That's so cool.
Yeah. But there are also apparently some disadvantages as well. Apparently those with the Neanderthal genes are more prone to loneliness, anxiety and depression. We're more prone to smoking. We're more prone to sugar addiction. That I can see why.
No, not used to it.
So anyway, so it's just interesting when you're looking at the genetics and the evolutionary aspects of it, how we are the way we are, and why everybody loves nature. When we close our eyes and realize, I want to go to vacation. Where do you want to go to vacation? Very few people want to say downtown LA.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, you're not in a meditative practice visualizing a city and just a busy city in traffic. You're picturing like a forest, a mountain, or the ocean, like you're talking about.
Yeah, we're drawn to it.
Yeah. It's
part of us, and a lot of and through culture and through technology, we don't see it. But let me ask. I thought this question to myself. I think it's an amazing question, and I found the answer. But here's the question for you guys. Knowing that we basically more or less took natural selection out of the equation through culture and technology, we're able to reproduce, remove ourselves from environmental stimuli. Is evolution still happening in humans? What do you think?
What do you got?
I think so.
Yeah. Technically speaking, I'd have to say yes also. I just feel like we have a big effect on it that we might not realize in the long term. And it might be, we might hit a cul-de-sac. We might get a...
Every species is actually, yeah.
But that's a scary thought, though, if we hit a cul-de-sac. But there's so many factors to evolution, like epigenetics and just like memories that they're finding. Memories can pass through genes. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, you have a child, but it seems like they're just way more in tune with these electronics than we ever were. And they kind of, like I was at a client's house for massage, and I saw their child was already on the iPad, and the child's barely 1. And it's like navigating, it's already pressing buttons.
You see those videos where they give a kid a photo and he's trying to swipe?
Yeah. I'm just wondering if there's something that's propelling them in this direction. It's not just culturally. Maybe it's something in the genes passing. I don't know. But I think that's where the evolution's kind of heading.
Interesting.
What's your conclusion?
The answer is yes. So you guys are right. For evolution, because evolution
we did.
Yeah.
We passed the test.
Evolution means change. And in order for change to happen, you have to have two things. One, you got to have a gene pool, which means variety. So we definitely have variety, even though human beings, believe it or not, are not genetically that diverse. Unless you never left Africa. Africa is like the mother pool of genetic diversity. But any of us whose ancestors decided to leave Africa basically came from a small pocket of humans, and then basically our genetics. So now we have, now we're intermixing, and this is called, it's good. It's called heterogeneity. It's basically the more mixed, the better, because we're increasing our variability in genetics. And second, you got to have some sort of outward influence, which means some sort of pressure. So you're right. The introduction of technology is going to force us to be more comfortable with technology. But even more than that, we are still very much influenced by natural selection. COVID, look at us. All our technology and all our cultural adaptations did nothing for a highly virulent virus. So disease can absolutely wipe us out. Climate change can still have an amazing effect on us. A volcano, a meteor, some sort of disaster can absolutely affect us. Nothing our technology. So that's absolute natural selection. It's happened to us in the past where a massive glaciation event happened. So that then we had like this bottleneck effect where we had thousands of humans and all of a sudden we were reduced to a couple of hundreds. And now we're all descendant from those few hundreds that survived. So forget about all that genetic material, right? Because even though they are of reproductive age, they just basically were wiped out. And what we're seeing now is basically more or less the same thing. In most developed countries, we're seeing a lower fertility rate. A lot more people are deciding to either not have children by choice or wait too long and realize they can't do it. So say if there's a woman with an allele that gives them a successful birth, ability to give birth at 40 years old, whereas you have someone else who's they're trying, but they're not able to. Obviously, the one who has that allele will pass on that allele. Allele, by the way, is a variety of gene. It's like one gene, but there's different ways, right? So the allele for blue eyes, green eyes, brown eyes, it's the same gene, but it's a different, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for variability in that one gene. So if you have that one gene that actually says like, you know what, yeah, you can be 40 years old and still have a healthy pregnancy, that's going to be passed down. So what are we going to see in thousands of years from now is possibly the age of fertility is probably going to be expanded. What if, look at twins. You can have twins now with no problem. Just a few generations ago, having a twin was a huge danger to the mother. So now because having twins runs in the family, it's inherited, there's a higher likelihood that's going to be passed on. So we're going to have a higher incidence of twins. Interesting. So this is going to shape the fabric of our genetic pool. And there are some evolutionists, physical anthropologists who are saying like, hey, give it another 10,000 years, we're all going to look like Brazilians. And that's a possible fact as well. The majority of the birth rate right now is happening in South America, India, and places where, with modern migratory patterns, because we definitely see there's definitely countries where people are emigrating from, leaving, and then immigrating to. Absolutely. So the answer is yes, we're definitely evolving, and we're definitely going to see some changes in the human population.
But this makes me wonder, could we hijack that system in a sense, especially with, I'm sure you're familiar with CRISPR, these gene editing softwares that they're working on, and eventually that you can actually choose what kind of genes you want to pass on for at least the most basic level, eye color and stuff like that.
But what you brought up made me realize that what governs evolution is the fact that we give birth and die. So even though we can really control that and even get ahead of those systems, I mean, I guess you're right. Yeah, we could totally, and we